Hello everyone and welcome back to Whisky Wednesday. Today we are talking about something which I actually owned a bottle of and then was also sent a sample of. So here we have the Loch Lomond 16 Waypoint Series. Let's just pull that back so it can focus a bit better. This is a first release of I think what will be a couple of releases in a series. 46.2%. And it's a 16-year-old single malt aged in bourbon barrels and then finished in cognac casks for a year. I have drank quite a lot of this and I've also thrown the box away. Apologies for that. This wasn't something I actually planned to review. I just bought it because I liked it. But the box is quite pretty. It's this kind of little cube with two opening doors on either side, and it's got this beautiful waterfall kind of within it. Not a literal one, just like a picture of one, and little signs pointing to Cognac and Scotland. It's a pretty cool style of whiskey. It is a non-chill filtered product. It is also natural colour. And as you can see, I've worked my way through that quite nicely. I think I bought this back in November. Upon its launch, I'm filming this in February, but it won't come out in February, so this will come out in probably March. I think for 6 months it's been an exclusive with the whisky shop, but at this point it should be available sort of everywhere. It's just under £80 a bottle for a 16-year-old whisky with a cognac finish. And it gives me an opportunity to talk a little bit about Loch Lomond because they're an interesting distillery. The sample pack I was sent came with a little sample, but I can put this just into here now because it's all the same batch. And it also came with this nice little glass, which I'll be doing the review in, which is nice because I'm running out of glasses because I keep breaking them. And it also came with a compass, which is quite good, which kind of matches up to the theme of it, you know, Loch Lomond as a starting point and then different cask influences over different years. The only thing I know about the future releases of this is that they'll be older, but I have no idea what kind of casks they'll be in. So let's get rid of all this. Not sure what I'm going to use this compass for, but nonetheless, there it is. Loch Lomond, despite being a Highland distillery, does produce what I would say in its core range is a kind of lowland style of single malt. It's quite grassy, it's very fruity. They do tend to bottle at 46% and above. And obviously within the one distillery, they make a lot of different distillates, but this is just the core range of Loch Lomond. Maturing Loch Lomond in bourbon barrels typically gives you this like apple, pear, grassy, sweet vanilla kind of profile. There is a tiny bit of smoke. Well, it's typically a peated style, but very, very light. So light to the point that you can't really taste it. They do heavily peated options and no peat in general, but there's a little bit of smoke kicking around in it. What else can I say about Loch Lomond? It's quite a new distillery. They only opened in 1965. I think they closed in 1984. They were reopened in 1987. They've recently released some very, very old bottles of whiskey. But when this came into store, I was quite intrigued by it really because I love Loch Lomond 14. I'm a big fan of the regular 12-year-old. It's like somewhat of a standard pour in this house. Big fan of Inchmurrin, like Inchmowen. They've got loads of different fun things going on. Bought this without even trying it because I just thought it was quite cool and I've loved it. But hopefully we'll see relatively soon what the new releases in this range are. But let's check it out. Very light colour, especially compared to some of the more recent whiskies we reviewed that have been very young and very old and very sort of sherry and virgin oak dominant. This just refill bourbon and some cognac influence. Let's give this a little smell. I've tried a lot of whiskies recently that haven't been reviewed, but this one would be included in that, where they've been really like daft mill adjacent. There's this one in particular. There's currently an old malt cask bottling of a Jura 14-year-old kicking around, which just reminds me of Daft Mill. A couple of other sort of strange cask samples I've tried in the last couple of weeks, and everything I've tried recently just reminds me of Daft Mill, including this. It has this beautiful, like, reminds me of being a kid. It's got, you know, when you open like a bag of like jelly sweets. It's that, because you get like this little bit of orange, this little bit of apple, this little bit of pear, this little bit of cherry. And that smell of like just added sugar to sweets. And I will say, you know, despite being at the base of Loch Lomond itself, every single Loch Lomond, even the smokier stuff, they just have this beautiful grassy note to them. It's just fresh, it's quite vibrant. I mean, I'm recording this in February on a pretty dismal day. There's like 50-mile-an-hour winds and it's still pouring down. But this, it's like a little glimpse of sunshine. There's a really dominant smell of actual orange juice to this. The cognac is adding that kind of sweet, sugary element. And what I've found quite interesting about cognac influence, and cognac and Armagnac in general recently, is that it's almost sherry adjacent. I mean, obviously they're made from the same thing, they're just, one is distilled, one is not. But, you know, if you want like a lighter flavour of sherry, don't necessarily go for like a dry sherry cask. Either buy a bottle of cognac or Armagnac, or try and find a relatively light single malt that's matured in some element of cognac cask, because you will get almost like diet sherry flavours. You get a very faint note of marinated fruit, that kind of dried marinated fruit. It's the typical thing of like sultana and raisin. But it's nowhere near as kind of over the top and decadent as like the Christmas cake thing and the chocolate sauce and all that sort of stuff. It's just incredibly fruity. It reminds me a lot of Tullamore Dew have a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old single malt, which are both matured in bourbon, sherry, port, and Madeira. And this is like that, it's just a lot more direct with the fruit. And it's not as exotic. Those Irish ones are quite tropical. This is more stone fruit, fruit salad, your kind of everyday apple, pear sort of stuff. And then you get these little elements of like powdered sugar with it too. It's just really crisp and fresh. It's like a little glass of sunshine. Let's taste it. It's a nice singing profile, my apologies. These big notes of like orange again, like honey blossom, apple blossom. It is springtime in a bottle. I opened this bottle on a tasting we held for W Club members recently in Manchester. And a point a lot of them made was that the finish has this almost like charred, burnt quality to it. Now, Loch Lomond do have their own cooperage, and it just says ex-bourbon casks on the back, so we're unsure if any of those are like recharred barrels or anything like that. But you do get this soft, yeah, gently burnt, kind of over-caramelized sugar tone to it, which is nice because it does offer quite a stark contrast to those super toppy, floral, fresh fruit notes. And even more to contrast that, I'm almost getting like an elderflower note to it now. Just really clean, fresh, and welcoming. Well, for a 16-year-old whiskey, it doesn't drink with the oak influence of a 16-year-old. I feel like the cognac is probably lightening that up a little bit. And the fact that, a huge thing that I forgot to mention because I threw the box away, Loch Lomond, typically their single malts are made up of two different still types. Apologies. One is a standard pot still, and then the other one is a very long neck pot still. It's still copper, and it's got like a copper reflux unit at the top. But obviously with a taller still and a higher still, you're always going to get a lighter style of distillate. Fusing that with American oak influences and a little bit of cognac finishing for a year, just revels in this fresh, fruity tingle of sunshine on your skin kind of flavour. Nice kind of note of like lemon curd running through it then. Breakfast whiskey. All of these notes are quite breakfasty things. Fruit salads, fresh pastry, burnt sugars, slightly bitter notes, burnt notes of like, you could call it maybe coffee, maybe like heavily roasted espresso. Takes you on quite a journey of flavour. And I will say, for the money, I think just under 80 quid for a 16-year-old whiskey, single malt whiskey at 46%, is really not a bad thing in the modern market. Brands are charging significantly more. Can't think of a brand charging less for a 16-year-old. Lagavulin 16 is kind of doing this constantly. But, you know, I bought this with my own money. It's at my own house. They were very kind to send me a sample, but that's now and then. So, as we get to this kind of warmer time of year, brighter time of year, I'll probably end up purchasing another one of these, because it is honestly just a delectable, easy drinking, welcoming style of whiskey. I remember pouring this for people in the shop. I'm like, oh, I don't like whiskey. And it got people into it, which is quite good. But I still think it has a huge element of complexity to it as well. Certainly more complex than some of the other older whiskies I've tried recently. And for significantly less money. That has certainly been a theme of this week's video and last week's video with the Meikle Tour Turbo. You can still get very good value whiskies. This, I'm pretty sure, is still in stock everywhere at this point. The Turbo, not as much. But obviously you can't win them all. I'll have one more taste, I'll score it, and then we'll depart. Yeah, I really like this. Those lemon elderflower notes are really kicking up now. And then you get this kind of, the bitter thing is turning into like Aperol. It's still, you know, it's not as bitter as Campari. In fact, it's nowhere near as bitter as most people think it is. But it's bright and it's lively and it's full of these big fruit notes. I really like it. I think it's really good value. That's like a solid 8 from me. You should be able to find that at most retailers now, so do reach out to them, check out their websites and stuff. And I'll see you next week for a very fun new thing. Thank you very much. Have a good day.